Hi moms and dads, a very warm welcome to another episode of Today's Parent. I'm your host Christine Casina. In today's episode, we are going to talk about how we can transition from couplehood to parenthood. Do you think that children change a marriage? In today's episode, we have Simon Miner, who's a counseling psychologist, sharing tips with us on how we can transition better from couplehood to parenthood. Welcome to today's show. Simon, a pleasure to have you.
Thank you very much.
Really a
Christine.
pleasure to have you.
Yeah.
Tell me something. How do you define couplehood? You know, coming from the background of being a psychologist, and you did mention that you're when we had our conversation before, that you're a pastor. When two people get together, what's the point of getting together?
Basically, I define marriage people coming together as a calling. It's actually a calling in the sense that when you come together, many times you look at it as I have needs and maybe my partner has needs, and we're coming together so that we can meet each other's needs.
Right.
But I think it's much, much higher than that. It's a higher calling in the sense that God initiates that and prepares that so that He can give us an opportunity to prepare each other to be the best that He wants us to be. And in that sense, for that reason, it is a calling. And it's not just limited to the two individuals, it's also extends even to the children that may come into that relationship moving forward.
Right.
Yeah.
So by the time the two people get together, how do they stay solid as a couple first, even before, bringing in children into the equation?
A lot of work that has to go into that. What people don't realize is that, yes, people, what we call falling in love, people come together because they have been able to meet each other's most important emotional needs. And a lot of times we don't take that seriously. We don't even realize that's what is happening. But before people say, I do, before they say, I want to get married to this person, it is because they have invested so much in each other and they have filled what I call the love bank. They have gotten to that threshold that we call romantic love, and so they're saying we want to be together for the rest of our lives. What people don't realize most of the time is that the same effort they put to bring themselves to that level,
date and court,
exactly, is the same effort and the same energy that is needed for them to stay in love. So they need to invest in the same way. And anytime that is neglected, a marriage crumbles down. And you get to the same people who loved each other, they thought they would die for each other, and suddenly they want to kill each other because they have neglected that which brought them together.
Right. So going back to our conversation of today, Simon.
Right.
How does children change a marriage?
Absolutely. It's a very drastic change. Because as I said, marriage itself is a calling, parenthood is a calling. And the moment the children will show up, suddenly that relationship is not again between the two people who are there. It is probably now 3 or 4 because it could be twins who have just come.
Can you imagine? Double the change.
Exactly. And so suddenly everything that you knew about life changes. And beginning with even the way you organize yourself, you realize even the way you move around the house has to change. The priorities are changing. Even the thinking patterns must change because you're accommodating a literal human being here who needs 100% focus because they're called dependents. And so it means they're 100% depending on the parent or the parents in this case to make sure that they survive. And if they do not give it all that is needed, that child is not going to survive.
Give us a glimpse into the psyche of a father. When a child comes into that relationship, into that marriage, how does a man change?
Probably I would talk about this man here because
You're a father?
He's a father of 3.
Wow.
And what happens initially, because when I look at my own children, is that the moment you're expecting a child, you may not realize it, but as a present and a committed father, immediately it's announced we are expecting a child. From that moment, psychologically, there is a shift. And now you begin to see responsibility in a different way. You begin to see the needs are suddenly going to be different.
Yeah.
And I believe, and my experience is, and especially when I became the father for the first time about 13, going to 14 years ago, it was a completely new experience. I had not seen children around me. I mean, being a lastborn, I knew to be a child. I didn't know to be a father.
Yeah.
And so what happened is that from the onset, I started deliberately thinking, how will this, what will this mean for me? What are the things that I need to cut down? And all those things so that I can be available and present more deliberately for this child. But it's a drastic change, I must say.
Okay.
Yeah.
And when the baby comes into the mix, I have heard of stories where a father feels that, I don't get as much attention compared to what I used to get before the children came. What advice can you give to dads who then are struggling with something like that? That I used to get, 100% attention from my lady, and now things have changed. How can they cope?
I think the starting point is just to appreciate what we said in the beginning, that this is a calling. You got into this calling not simply because of your little selfish needs. I mean, it's more than that. And I'm not saying that a marriage should be neglected because a child has come into the picture,
Yeah.
but I think the mindset should be from the onset that I have a calling here,
Yeah.
and there is something very significant that I need to accomplish in this life beyond just my personal needs. And with that mindset, it becomes easier. But having said that, I also need to say a marriage need not suffer because a child has come into the picture. I think what needs to change is our approach and our strategies of approaching the whole situation, whereby we know that I'm going to change even my way of relating even to my spouse, so that now I am more of thinking, how do I minister to these people? How do I meet their needs? How do I avail myself to be part of this journey?
Right.
Because it's a significant transition, and for a man, he needs to know that actually I am a parent here. I'm not a spectator. I'm part of this game. I'm part of this journey.
Yeah.
And so for that reason, instead of whining and complaining and thinking, I'm not getting as much attention as I should, give it. I mean, give the attention to your wife, to your child, and that becomes a game changer, in my opinion.
I hear you, Simon. And
Right.
what about the woman? How can the woman, in this whole change, how can she find a way to accommodate? I know women have big hearts.
Right.
But how do you find balance on, loving your spouse, loving your child? How do you balance that?
It's not easy, and of course I may not be a very good authority here because I've never been a mother. And so I may not speak experientially. However, what I would say is first and foremost, it also depends on what was happening in that relationship before this child showed up. Because you see, neglect of marriage is a very gradual process. It's very subtle. It doesn't happen suddenly because a child has arrived. And what I advise young couples is to make a decision from the onset that we're going to have a culture of taking care of each other. And that culture will not be interrupted.
That's a good one.
Okay. For me, and people are different. And one of the things that my wife and I did from the time we got married, we started a culture of taking walks together. Okay. And so we said, a child has come, that is not going to interrupt our culture.
Yeah.
Okay.
For us as a couple.
Exactly. And so what happened is that initially, of course, it was difficult. Of course, my wife could not move around a lot, so the evening walks were not there in the few months beginning, and so I had to take a slightly different approach to it. But as soon as we were ready, and those days actually, it was somewhere in Eastland, and we would just pick that baby, carry the baby, and go to our walks.
And walk around
Exactly.
and have a conversation.
Have a conversation, look at the building, just talk. And when you do that, when you're deliberate, and I think that's the word to underline, be deliberate, okay? Because a child is not supposed to be an interruption. A child is supposed to be a blessing into this equation, okay? And remember, if you can look at 18 years, the length of time that you'll have with this child, which probably translates to less than 1,000 weeks.
You know, it's a very short time, by the way.
It's a very short time.
Very short time.
Before you know it, you're both of you again.
And then you're with this person and you can hardly have a conversation.
You don't know
18
each
years
other.
later.
I mean, you don't even remember who this person was. Okay.
Do men have a capacity to receive feedback?
Well, it is not a man thing. I would have.
Actually, it's a human thing.
And once again, I go back to my word. You have to be deliberate. You've got, because it's, you know, Christine, you need to appreciate this, that it's very easy for me to tell myself, you are a very selfish person.
Mm-hmm.
But imagine my spouse telling me that, Simon, you're very selfish.
Wow.
It's not the same thing.
That goes deep.
It's very
That
deep.
goes deep.
It's very deep. And so growth, personal development means that I must deliberately enhance my capacity to take feedback, that I can sit there and allow my wife to tell me how selfish I am. And I'll say, yes, dear.
You
are
can
right.
say yes, dear, and mean it, or you just say it.
If you want to grow, you have to mean it.
Absolutely.
And I mean, it's not an easy thing. It's not an easy thing. But that's one of the processes in which you're going to enhance and grow yourself as a person. But the other process is the capacity to self-disclose. Mm-hmm. That capacity to be able to open up. Because you see, even in a spouse relationship, it's very difficult for someone to say, yes, this is who I am, and these are the issues that we need to work on.
Right.
Okay. And you know, if that is not happening, then parenting is not going to happen effectively.
All right, Simon, let's take a break and then we'll continue our conversation when we come back.
Thank you very much. Okay.
In today's conversation, we have Simon Miner, who's a counseling psychologist. We are talking about how we can transition better when it comes to moving from couplehood to parenthood. We are going to take a short break. We'll be right back after this. Welcome back to today's episode of Today's Parent, where we have counseling psychologist Simon Miner sharing with us how we can transition better from couplehood to parenthood. Simon, we have a question that has come in from Anne, and Anne's question is, how can I keep my relationship strong after baby? If you can share a tip or two before we go back into our conversation.
I guess number one, if you want to keep a relationship strong, it has to be the effort of the both parties involved, and making sure that you do not lose yourself, in the sense that you do not get really distracted, in the sense that now this is a baby who has come and is not part of the equation, and you can easily imagine that life now is locked up there.
Everything is about the baby.
Everything is about the baby. Remember, this is a person. You know, it's only that it's a little one. That is, this is a human being. They have their own life. And also, it doesn't mean that your life must be completely lost into that. So that is number one. But then again, the other thing that would keep this marriage strong is when you have constant and focused conversations, you know, find out what exactly do we need to outline, and what kind of a program do we work with in this new reality. Because you see, what makes marriages strong and relationships strong is time. So you've got to make a decision. How are we going to carve time and make sure that this is the most important relationship? I use this example just to outline and emphasize what I'm talking about. If we were in a situation where my 3 children and my wife are drowning, God forbid, but they're drowning somewhere, and I'm there, the only person who can rescue them, and I normally ask this question, who should I go for first?
Wow.
And the answer...
And all of them can swim. Your wife and your 3 children can swim.
They can't swim, they're drowning. I'm the only one who can rescue them one at a time. Who should I go for? And it must be my wife.
Really?
She must be, because this is the most important person in my life. This is the most important relationship in my life. As the Bible puts it, the two shall become one. She's one flesh with me. My children are not one flesh with me.
And it's the truth. They will leave you at some point.
Exactly. So to answer Anne's question, I would say make sure you carve time for the marriage. Invest. And the question a couple must ask, how much time is enough for this marriage?
How much time is enough, by the way? What's your take on that?
That's not, I would say marriage is a full-time job. And on the minimum, I would say if you're not able to invest a minimum of an hour of focused one-on-one with your spouse every day.
No interruptions. No technology.
No time for TV. That's no time to watch something. You're not sleeping at that time. So you're focusing on each other. That for me would be on the minimum. Well, circumstances may not probably allow that to be Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, but make up at the end of the week. Can you look back and say, yes, on a minimum, we have been together 7 hours, focusing on each other.
That's a good point.
Yeah.
All right.
Babies or no babies?
1 hour at least per day.
Exactly. That would be my opinion.
All right.
Yeah.
Going back to our conversation of today, of how children can change a relationship. So I'll mention them one by one, and then you'll share with us what we can do, in those departments.
Right.
So some of the marriage issues that we can face when baby comes, in my opinion, the issue of finances.
Yes.
Of course, now finances become something that we need to look at differently. So what changes when it comes to finances when baby comes into the picture?
Definitely an extra expense, and babies are not cheap.
Very true, very true.
Yeah, when you look at it long term, and of course, I always believe that there is provision for every child that comes into the picture, and that does not negate the fact that we need to plan adequately and appropriately. However, I know that God is very gracious and He will always provide.
Yeah.
But I think that's an area that parents need to think about. One tip that I would give is this. The pressure for example, the parents to feel a baby is coming, and so for that reason, we were living in one-bedroomed house. We need to suddenly move to a bigger house.
Absolutely.
I think that's one of the pressures that parents give themselves that is not necessary. Okay. Well, I'm not saying
immediately.
Immediately, we know that the baby is coming, and you're frantic about it.
We need to move. We need to move.
This child is small.
And
it's too small. Space. They need very little space, and just knowing that there are higher priorities that we need to think about financially. It should not change, or it could interfere with your budgeting and all that. However, I believe with good planning, you can still be able to work within manage a budget. Because one of the things that happens is that there is overbuying. I see young parents, mothers, especially in this case, because they are charged with that responsibility of making the purchases. Yeah. And you buy so many things that you actually don't need. You buy so many clothes, and within 3 weeks, the child has outgrown all those clothes, and you're thinking about throwing them away, and you're wondering what to do. You have to go back to the shop. Yeah. I think being advised properly and having a mentor, I believe you will always need someone to work with, an older mother, and that's how it should work, who helps you to work around some of these issues.
Right. So with finances, like you've said, the most important is planning. Plan early.
Exactly.
All right. The second one, sex.
Well, a big one. Well, when children come, it should get better.
It should get better.
Because at least you can see the results.
Clearly.
However, definitely, that sex life is affected. Because now, of course, the mother will need time to recover and to regain strength. And of course, now, sex is not just a physical act.
Absolutely.
It's both emotional and psychological and all that. And so for that reason, it's in the initial phase, immediately after the baby comes, there need to be a lot of understanding and a lot of patience, and knowing that we are not just here to meet only this one need. Okay, I look at sex life in a marriage in a comprehensive way. It's one among other emotional needs that a couple has. A very important one is However, it is one among the others. So what I say is this: in those moments when sex life is being interrupted, legitimately so, because of this need that need to be attended to, invest in meeting other needs. Invest in being affectionate towards each other. Invest in domestic support. Invest in other areas. And what you realize is that that will actually enrich a sex life in a big way. What parents need to appreciate is this: when the child comes, and that's, I was not joking when I said sex life should improve, is because now it gives you an opportunity to connect at a different level. Okay, when the man is coming in to support the parenting of this very little one, of course that is a very powerful thing for the wife, and they realize, wow, this man is interested not only in my body, but in my life in a general way, and therefore it will enhance the sexual experience in that marriage.
All right. Speaking about the domestic space, you've just mentioned it briefly. When it comes to chores around the house, when you're moving into, parenthood, you used to, like, for most men, you come into the house, you're on the couch with the remote, madam does most of the work. That changes, of course, when the baby comes into the picture. How can men help more around the home?
I think the men, and Kenyan men specifically, need to be ready to move beyond the cultural stereotypes and just be deliberate. And this does not come when the child comes. I think the culture of helping around should be from the onset. I know because of our culture also, there are women who feel like you're getting into my space and I don't want you to do that. However, I believe it's a very rich experience when a man will be able to say, I want to support you. And let it be the man's initiative to say, how can I be of help? Okay? Of course, that's a space that I walk into very cautiously because I know my wife leads in that area, and therefore I will be gentle enough to say, I don't want to come and mess up your kitchen. So just show me where am I needed, and then I will walk in there and I'll be deliberate about supporting when I'm invited to. Okay? And that does not mean also that I cannot initiate. The domestic. It's a good thing when my wife wakes up in the morning and I've made breakfast for her.
That would be wonderful.
Without being prompted to do that.
If you can get most of our men to do that, that would be absolutely wonderful.
And I think that's a brilliant way of thinking. It enhances the relationship. Because remember, what we're talking about here is this. We are saying most important needs in this marriage need to be met. Okay? I don't define for my wife what that most important need is for her. Because we come with that mindset, because I'm thinking the most important need, for example, is recreation, companionship. Okay? So I think what should be happening every day is that my wife should be taking me out for, to watch soccer or something like that. While for her, she has a very different mindset. All she needs is for me to walk into that kitchen and clean the place.
Simon, do you think as women we need to speak our minds more and say it as it is, that I need you to help me in the kitchen because you find I'm upset? For example, I'm upset you're not helping around the house. But instead of saying it, you'll hear me in the kitchen, hitting the utensils louder, and then we go on winter, meaning we are not, we have a cold war, we are not speaking. And as a man, you're wondering, what did I do? And she's thinking, why can't you see that I need your help? Do you think as women, as mothers, we need to articulate more that we need help and say, hey, I need help from you?
Precisely. I always advise couples, simplify communication.
Simplify communication.
Yes, stop talking in tongues and imagining he'll catch it or she'll catch it. I mean, simplify communication. Say what you mean, and then put it in black and white. I need this. Kindly help me iron this shirt. I mean, don't imagine because you have put the shirt there in a place where it can be seen that it's going to happen. Communication should be very, very basic. That kindly come here and help me chop this. Kindly, please, would you remove this trash from here for me? I would appreciate it very much. Okay, I believe successful marriages And of course, has a very huge impact on parenting, by the way,
Yeah.
because the way we communicate is the same way that we're going to pass to the next generation, to our children.
Absolutely.
Okay, so make it very, very simple that in this relationship will be, I'll not just sit back and assume he should know, she should know.
Yeah.
No, why?
I mean, tumekuwa pamoja miaka mingi bado hujui.
And you know what? I should not know.
Yeah.
I should
and
be told.
change along the way.
Exactly. So just tell me, simply put, just please come and do ABC. Please be early today. I mean, and then don't get tired of saying it because you see, you think that you have said it enough times. No, you've not said it enough times.
Yeah.
You need to say it again and again until it sinks.
Thank you, Simon. And for any parent who's watching and they want to connect with you, how can they get in touch with you?
Yeah, I'm available, and of course through you, it's possible for them to get to me. I'm not sure if
you can go ahead and share if you have any social media links. I'm sure they can send you a message and get in touch with you, or a number to your office. How can they get in touch with you?
They can get to me through my phone number, 0722 453079.
All right.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for your time.
Okay. Thank you very much, and I appreciate having me.
No, God bless.
Thank you.
And with that, we come to the end of today's episode of Today's Parent. We had Simon Miner, he's a counseling psychologist. Our conversation today was how we can transition better from couplehood to parenting. One thing that he has mentioned that will remain with me, and I hope it also remains with you, it's important for us to be deliberate on how we are going to move from couplehood to parenting. There are so many things we can preempt, and it's important for us to prepare as a couple and see what we are going to maintain to keep us together and keep the fire burning. I have been your host, Christine Casina, and I hope this show was very insightful to you. And we've been here in studio at Little Cribs, the home of fun, exciting, durable, and affordable kids furniture. If you're looking for parenting resources when it comes to raising your children, head on to www.supermamas.co.ke. We thank you so much for your time. Have a wonderful day. Goodbye.